Okay. I don't have video on these, and I don't know if I like that or not. I guess we'll find out. First, this is your Chapter 1 vocab list. It's posted in Google Classroom. At least by the time you see this, it will be posted. This list is also available inside the VHL, the Vista Higher Learning Central login when you go and work on your homework every week. It's part of your textbook, so you can, when you go into your vText or your eText or whatever it's called, then you can find the vocab list. But I also have them saved, and I'll post them in Google Classroom just so that it's quick and easy to find and you have easy access to them. You'll use your vocab list every chapter when we're working on notes, when you're working on homework. So this is good to keep handy. You can download a copy and keep it while we're working on notes or while you're working on homework. So for today's notes, we're going to do some nouns and articles. If you've ever taken any kind of a Spanish class before, this will probably be a super easy day because it'll look all very familiar to you. Even if you haven't done a Spanish class before, a good amount of it will still probably look familiar to you because you've likely seen it in places often enough that some of it should be pretty straightforward. And then there are some other things that should be new. So when you come across these statements at the beginning of my notes, these are not something you have to write down, but they are good things to go back and make sure that you can check off each of these, especially when you are studying for a test or just at the end of a video to make sure, yep, I can do these things, we're good. Moving on. So if you can go down this list and say at the end of this, yep, I can tell the difference between a masculine and feminine noun, or I can identify that noun as masculine and that noun as feminine. Beautiful. You can make a noun plural, or you can make a plural noun singular. And then you know the difference between definite and an indefinite article. If you can check all those boxes, beautiful, we've done our job for today. If you are unsure on any of those, then that's where you might need to go back and get a little bit of extra help or ask some clarifying questions. Also, I know we're in an online class and you're watching videos of our notes. However, I still do recommend writing your own notes. It's just easier for it's an easy way for you to remember things without having to study it quite as hard. When you write something down, like manually write it with a pen and a paper, you don't have to go back and look at it as often or as many times or do as much studying because the act of writing it down helps you remember. When you're just watching a video and you're not writing anything down, it's a lot easier for it to just kind of go in one ear and out the other. So I still recommend writing, even though you're watching video notes. Okay, before we go into our nouns and articles, we're going to talk about vowels in Spanish first. We'll have another day where we just do the alphabet, or alphabet and numbers, but we're going to start with the vowels today because if you can pronounce the vowels in Spanish, you can pretty much pronounce just about or most words in Spanish. In English, the vowels can make multiple sounds. So letter A in English, it can have multiple sounds to it. In Spanish, the letter A is always going to sound like ah. So if you know the sounds for each of the vowels, then any word that you see, you know, oh, there's a letter A. It's going to be pronounced like ah every time. So even if you feel a little bit silly, I want you to repeat the vowels out loud. Start working on your muscle memory. So repite A, E, I, O, U. And again, A, E, I, O, U. Now we're going to move, kind of combine some. So repeat still. A, E, I, A, I, O, A, I, O, U. If you do this multiple times until you know your vowels really well, it'll make your life a lot easier when it comes to pronunciation in Spanish. Okay, so let's move on to our nouns. First, we're going to start with like people type nouns. So in Spanish, first off, nouns, person, place, things, ideas. In Spanish, nouns always have a gender. In English, that's not the case. But in Spanish, a noun is always going to be masculine or feminine. So they always have gender. Some other languages have like neutral or neuter genders. We just have masculine and feminine in Spanish. So the most common ending for a noun that's masculine is going to be an O. So if a noun ends in an O, most often it's going to be masculine, like el chico, the boy. Now, because this noun happens to be a person and people could be masculine or feminine, we have a masculine version and we have a feminine version. Because if chico is boy, but we want to use the feminine version and say girl, we're going to make the ending an A, chica. So if a noun ends in an A, oftentimes it's feminine, chica, girl. If a noun ends in an OR, like profesor, this is masculine. This is a male teacher. The feminine counterpart would be an ora ending, so profesora. And again, we have that A ending. That's kind of our big clue there that it's feminine. Still a teacher, but now it's a feminine teacher. There are some words that are not inherently masculine or feminine. For instance, anything that ends in an ista, it could be masculine or it could be feminine. So dentista, just the word dentista on its own, we don't know if it's masculine or feminine. It ends in an A, but it's not automatically going to be feminine. If it's la dentista, that la is telling us that it's feminine because that's the feminine article. We'll talk more about those in a minute. So if it's la dentista, that tells us, oh, well, now it's a female dentist. If it's a male dentist, it's still dentista, but now we're going to use el dentista, and that tells us it's a male dentist. So the dentista, the actual noun part itself, it could be masculine or feminine if it ends in that ista ending. Okay, so now some nouns that are not people. Any other type of a noun, like a notebook, a computer, any type of a noun, still is going to be masculine or feminine in Spanish. Again, our general rule, if it ends in an O, it's going to be masculine. Like cuaderno, it's masculine. It's a notebook. There's nothing actually masculine or feminine about these things, but we need to know that the noun is a masculine noun, and that keeps our grammar all in agreement and good grammar every time we're constructing sentences. So we have to know the gender of our nouns. So cuaderno, número, those are masculine. They end in an O. Computadora ends in an A. Also has that ora ending, just like on our last slide. So it's a feminine noun. Cosa ends in an A. It's feminine. Oops, skipped ahead. Now this one is where a lot of early learning students will mess themselves up, because you'll see a word and it ends in an A, like problema, and you'll say, oh, that's feminine because it ends in an A. No, it ends in a ma. It's not just an A ending, it's a ma ending. So if it's an M-A at the end, like problema, it's actually masculine. So be really careful there. Just because you see an A, double check and see, oh, well, is it an A or is it an M-A ending? If it's an M-A ending, like problema, it's a masculine noun. And then if the word ends in a ion, this has a sion, but really anything that's an ion is feminine. La lección, anything with that ion ending is going to be feminine. Anything with an S, like autobús, país, those are masculine nouns. Oh my gosh, I did it again. Sorry. And then anything ending in a DAD, like comunidad, is feminine. That DAD ending is feminine. This little note up here, I don't really want you to worry about this too much. The main thing is knowing that a ma ending is masculine, which is here. The pa and the ta, these ones really are like, sometimes those words are masculine and sometimes they're feminine. It depends on where the word came from originally. So if it was like a Roman word, or if it was I forget the other one. It depends where the origin of the word was. So some of those are masculine and some are feminine. So don't really worry too much about the pa and the ta, but this is more of like, sometimes if you see a pa and a ta, it ends in an A, so you want to say, oh, it's feminine. And sometimes that is true, but sometimes if it ends in a pa or a ta, then it follows this masculine rule. However, for now, whenever you're looking at activities or homework assignments or anything like that, if it's a ma, yes, it's masculine. If it's any other thing that's an A ending, probably those words will be feminine, at least on our vocab lists for now. Okay, so now we have a practice. We've looked at these articles already, and we'll talk more about them in a second, but we're just going to start with these two. So we have el, which is a masculine article, and we have la, which is a feminine article. For now, I just want you to assign the gender. So you'll hear me say this a lot, but our nouns and our articles, they always go together. They always have to agree in gender and in number, which means if the noun is masculine, the article is masculine, and the number is singular plural. You'll hear me say that a lot all semester long because all of our grammar always has to be in agreement. So our article and our noun, they go together. The diagram, we need them both to be the same gender. So if diagrama is masculine, then we need the masculine article el. If diagrama is feminine, we need the feminine article la. So what you're going to do is you can either write this down in your notes, write down the article to match the the noun to make sure it's either masculine or feminine, or you can just do it orally. So you can pause it, and then at the end, I'll go through it. So you're going to pick either el for a masculine noun or la for a feminine noun. And then when you unpause, I'll give you the answers. Okay. So for the first one, this one ends in an ma, so it's masculine. El diagrama. La acción, that ion ending is feminine. La personalidad, that's feminine. It has that dad ending. El programa, again, I did it again. El programa has that MA ending, so it's masculine. Maleta is feminine. La maleta, it ends in an A, so we're going to use the feminine article. El diccionario ends in an O, so it's a masculine article. La conversación, ion ending makes it feminine. El video, O ending is masculine. La nacionalidad, the dad ending makes it feminine. And la palabra ends in an A, so it's feminine. These are some common words down the bottom that are exceptions to that rule. They all, mapa ends in an A, dia ends in an A, so you would think, according to the rule, they should be feminine, but they're not. These ones are exceptions to the rule, and I include these here because they're pretty common words. Mapa, especially if you're traveling or asking directions or anything like that. A map, that's a common word used in Spanish, but it's masculine. It's el mapa. Same with el día. Even though it ends in an A, it's el día. And then mano, your hand. La mano, it ends in an O, but it's actually feminine. So these are just a few exceptions to the rule, and they're good to know because they're common words. Okay, so now making something plural. This is pretty straightforward. First off, if a word ends in a vowel, like chico, we just add an S. Chicos. Now it's plural. If the word ends in a consonant, so anything that's not a vowel, like nacionalidad, then we're going to add an ES. So it adds an entire extra syllable because we always pronounce every single vowel in the word in Spanish. So nacionalidad, and then we have that ES ending, dades. So now it's dades. It's a whole extra syllable. It's not nacionalidades, it's nacionalidades. And then if it ends in a Z, like lapis, when you make it plural, you replace the Z with a C, and then it gets an ES ending. So it's lapises. And then ojo, this just means like watch out, keep an eye on these, some extra things to know. If we have an accent mark, a tilde in the last syllable, so like lección has that accent mark, autobús has the accent mark over the last syllable. When we make it plural, we're adding an entire extra syllable to the word. So we're removing the accent mark in the plural version. You don't really need to know. The Y of it has to do with the number of syllables in a word, tells you where the stress would naturally fall in that word. And then if it doesn't, then you can put accent marks, and that's how we know where the stress goes in a word. You don't need to know any of that. You'll get to that if you get into more advanced grammar. What you need to know is if the word has an accent mark in the singular version at the very end of the word, lección, the stress still is going to fall there when we make it plural. It's still going to be lecciones. That's still where the accent or the stress normally falls. But now it goes there naturally, so it didn't need the accent. So just to know, when it's singular, it gets that accent mark in some of these words, but the plural version doesn't need it. Something else that's that you need to know when you are referring to groups of people. If it's a group of people that's a mix of male and female, we always default masculine. So when you're referring to a group of boys and girls, we're going to always default masculine. You're going to say chicos. Nowadays, it's more common that people will say chicos y chicas. They'll add boys and girls. They'll specify that there's also girls there. But the grammar is just you default masculine. If you're not sure, oh, well, this is a mix. This is mostly girls. There's 100 people here and 99 of them are female. If there's even one male, then we're going to default masculine. So if there's 9 passengers that are female and then there's one guy that walks up and joins the group, we're now referring to that whole group as pasajeros in the masculine. And then there are some words like dentista, we already talked about, that dentista itself is not masculine or feminine. It could be either one. And so you just have to look at the context or the article beforehand to tell which one it should be. There are some other words that are like that. Joven is a young person. So you guys are jóvenes. And joven itself could be masculine or it could be feminine. So you have to look at context or the article beforehand to know if it's a young man, el joven, or if it's a young woman, la joven. Estudiante is another one. Ends in an E, so it's not masculine or feminine. The context will tell you, and so it could be either one. El estudiante is the male student, and la estudiante is a female student. Okay, let's talk about the articles. So we've already kind of talked about the el and the la. Those are definite articles. A definite article, just like in English, it means the. So in English, we also have definite and indefinite articles. We have the, and then we have a, or some. So the definite articles, el, la, los, and las. So we have a masculine version, we have a feminine version, and then we have a plural version of each of those. So we have the masculine plural and the feminine plural. And remember that I mentioned that our article and our noun, they always go together. It's the bike or the boy. They always go together. So those two words always have to agree with each other. So they agree in gender, masculine or feminine, and they agree in number, singular or plural. And then there's also indefinite articles. So the masculine indefinite article, I did it again. It's so touchy, my trackpad. The indefinite masculine singular article is un. That just means a, like un chico, a boy. The feminine version of that, una chica, now it's a girl. And then because we can't make a plural, that's not a thing. The plural version of these articles is some. So unos chicos, that's some boys or some kids. And unas chicas, some girls. So it's just a less specific. Definite articles, they're defined. It's the boy, the girl. We're talking about somebody specific, whereas indefinite articles are unspecified. It's a boy or some girls. And then there's another exception note. So these are words like agua is another common word. It means water. Agua is a feminine noun. It ends in an A. It is feminine. However, when we say el agua, we use the masculine article here. The reason for this is because if we said la agua, now we have la ends in an a, and then the agua also starts with the a, so we have that double a right next to each other. We have the two a sounds right next to each other. And if we said la agua, no one's going to stop and separate their words so clearly like that. So it would end up being lagua, and it would sound like one word, and that would be kind of confusing, and it would not sound like an article and a noun. So because we don't want to squish those words together and we want to differentiate between the article and the noun, this is why these words, if it starts with an a sound, like agua, águila, hacha, starts with the letter H, but H's are silent in Spanish. We'll talk more about those on Alphabet Day. Since it's an A sound, we don't want those double A sounds right next to each other, so we're using the masculine article. When we make it plural, however, then we're going to use the plural article. The reason for this is because now we have the separation. The S separates the two A sounds already. So we could say las aguas and las águilas, las hachas, because we already have the separation between the words. It's just when we have the A's right next to each other, like la agua, that it would squish the words together. So there's a few other exceptions just to know of. So if you ever come across these words, yes, agua is feminine, you're not going crazy. It ends in an A. It's a feminine word. The plural version is feminine, but there is a reason that we use a masculine article for it. Okay, here's another practice. In this practice, if the noun and article are singular, you're going to make it plural. If the noun and article are plural, you're going to make it singular. So for instance, in number 9, this one is using an indefinite article, unas computadoras. So you're going to make this singular. Don't change the unas. Don't make this one a definite article. You're going to keep it an indefinite article. You're just making it singular. El número, this one's already singular. You're going to make it plural. Again, this is using a definite article, so you're going to keep the plural version also a definite article. You can pause it here. I want you to go through, do all of these ones. And then when you unpause it, I'll give you the answers. Okay. And número uno. We haven't done numbers yet. I shouldn't give you our numbers yet. So we're going to make this one plural. It's going to be los números. Just adding an S at the end and making this los. Next one, we're going to make it unos diarios. Next one, las estudiantes, just adding an S to each word. And number 4, we're making it los conductores. Make sure this is an ES at the end, conductores. Same in number 5, los países, making it an ES ending. Also, you would drop this accent mark, países. Number 6, we're dropping the S's here to make it singular, la cosa. Number 7, we're making this one singular, and to make this singular, it's going to be un turista. Turista is one of those words that it has an ista ending, so it could be masculine or feminine. Here, we know it's masculine because unos is masculine, and so that's telling us that this is a group of tourists, probably a mix of male-female. But when we make it singular, we're going to keep it masculine. So the singular version of unos is un turista. In number 8, we're going to make this la nacionalidad. So it should end right here at the D. Number 9, we're dropping the S's, una computadora. 10 becomes el problema. Remember, this has an MA ending, so it's masculine. But if you didn't remember that, the los here is also a really big clue. That's telling you it's masculine. You just need to make los singular. So it would be el problema. In 11, we're going to make it feminine. Sorry, it's already feminine. We're making it plural. We're going to add S's. Unas fotografías. 12 should be el profesor. It has this OR ending. This is the plural ending, but the gender part is right here. The OR makes it masculine. Also, the los tells you it's masculine. So the singular would be el profesor. 13, we're dropping the S's. Una señorita. 14, we're making it plural. Los hombres. 15 is las maletas. And 16 is las señoras, just adding S's to each of those. Okay, so now that you've gone through the video, we've gone over the notes. You want to double check with yourself. Can I do these things? Can you look at a noun and tell if it's feminine or if it's masculine based off of just looking at that noun? Can you make a noun into a plural version and the article as well? And then can you tell the difference between a definite and an indefinite article? If you could do those things and check them all off, beautiful. We've done what we came to do. If you are unsure about any of those, that's where you might need to go back and review a little bit extra. From here, what you're going to do is in Google Classroom, I don't have it posted yet. By the time you look at it, in our Google Classroom, you're going to see a discussion question. So because we're not meeting in person, normally in person we would have a lot of little conversation practice activities with partners or with small groups. Because you're doing this online, instead of that in-class participation, you're getting your participation by having like short discussions through our Google Classroom. So what will be posted for you is a question. It will say that it's ungraded. However, these discussion questions count as your participation, and you are graded on participation. So each individual question doesn't have its own grade. At the end of the month, though, I will input participation points for the month, and every month is 25 points of participation. So if you do each of these participation questions throughout the entire month, beautiful, you get your 25 points. If you're not doing these questions, you're not going to get your full or any, depending on how much you did, of your participation points. So the assignment is listed as ungraded, but it is in fact counting towards your participation points. So make sure that you're doing your participation, the questions that are posted. There should be about 2 each week. I think that'll be about the average. Some weeks it might be 1, some weeks it might be 3. So on average, we should be sitting at about 2 per week. So after you do the notes and watch these videos, you'll look for the participation question. The first one is mostly using your vocab. So keep your vocab list handy. And you have 2 parts. First, you're going to respond to the question itself. Whenever possible, you're using complete sentences, and I'll always tell you, yes, it needs to be a complete sentence, or if it doesn't. And then the second part is always to go and respond to another student. So you're not getting that in-class discussion, but you are at least having a little bit of a back and forth with somebody and practicing what we just learned. So for this one, it's using vocab off of our vocab list. And then when you're done with that, you're going to move on to our VHL homework, which is your textbook portal. That's where the majority of our homework grades are. And so every single week you have those grades due, or those assignments that are due. I think I have Monday due dates. That's to help pace you. But each chapter, at the end of each chapter, after we do the chapter test, then I'll take your grades from all of your VHL activities from chapter 1, and I'll put them into our gradebook here in Google Classroom. So you do have some wiggle room in there, like I mentioned in the intro video for the class. But you have weekly due dates. So VHL, which are the computer, like the auto-graded assignments, it's a lot of activities. It's 2 to 2.5 hours every single week. So make sure that you're working on those every week. So you have VHL, you have a participation question, which really should only take you a few minutes. And then each chapter, I also usually have at least a couple of extra Google Classroom assignments. And those are ones that I'm really looking at. They're almost more like a quiz where I'm testing your knowledge. I want to see, yes, you did this specific activity and I can see it and I grade it and I give you that feedback through Google Classroom. Whereas VHL is more practice and you're getting that immediate computer graded feedback. And then the conversation or the participation, those are to try and simulate sort of like a typed out conversation since they're not in-person oral conversations. So you have your participation question and you have VHL, and then you also have your conversation labs starting next week. They start on Mondays, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So they're starting on Tuesday. If you're not signed up for a lab yet, you need to be signed up immediately. They start next week. They are required. They're not optional. You have to attend your labs every single week. Whatever day and time you sign up for, that's the day and time you'll go every single week, all semester long. If you signed up for Mondays, then since Monday is a holiday, you do not have your lab. You'll start on the 27th, the following Monday. And they don't make you make them up anymore, I don't believe. So if you had Monday labs, you just won't attend your lab next week. It'll start the week after. But anyone that signed up for Tuesday through Friday labs, you have your labs starting next week. And they have in-person and online labs, so you have some flexibility if you would rather do one or the other. But if you're not signed up already, make sure you're signed up. And then when you're signed up, make sure that you've done your conversation lab quiz. So you should be signed up through the World Language site. And then in our Google form here, you have your quiz, which is just letting me know, yes, I am signed up. I know I have to do this. This is when I signed up for. And then that's also your first graded assignment for the semester. So make sure you've signed up for those and you're prepared for your conversation labs coming up. As always, make sure that you email me if you have any questions. Even though we're online, I'm still available for you if you need extra help or if you want to meet through our Google Meets here on Google Classroom. We can always meet virtually so I can answer any questions that you have. But don't save your questions. Don't let yourself get bogged down. Make sure that you ask your questions early and often so that you succeed in our class. I will see you in the next video.